Hey, everybody, this is Eric with the Drum Addict. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Backbeat. Today, I'm very excited. I've been looking forward to this interview with my friend Mike Conway. Mike, how are you, man?
I'm awesome. I mean, is this Eric? Is this the Drum Addict, the legendary? I can't believe I'm on connecting, talking to you in the Drum Addict. This is freaking cool.
I'm flattered, and I feel the same way. I'm just such a fan of your drumming. I'm just like, man, and you have so much fun doing it too, which I think is important. So yeah, big fan on this end too.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. I'm completely honored to be here, and I hope I can answer your questions in an entertaining fashion, because like I said, you are great in front of the camera, and I'm a little self-conscious in front of the camera.
You do great. The times I've seen you, you do great. And I have been looking forward to this interview. I know it's been booked out for months.
I know. We booked this thing in like April or something like that. Am I free in September? I guess. I don't know.
I guess if I write it down, I can be. But yeah, what are you doing 6 months from now?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't. Does anybody know what they're doing 6 months from now?
I know I don't.
Lord willing and the creek don't rise. I guess it's kind of one of those things. Well, no, super psyched. So let's jump into it, and I'll ask you the basic question, of course, is what got you into playing drums?
Well, Eric, I'm an old guy, and I don't know if a lot of people know that, but I grew up in the 70s. So like in the late 70s, I'm the youngest of four in my family. So being the younger brother or the youngest sibling, I guess, you kind of listen to what your older brother, I have two older brothers and an older sister. I kind of would listen to what my older brothers were listening to. And this was back in the days before there were music videos, and before there was, there were record stores, which was like the cool thing to go to, back in the day. And you would just go to, they're like independent stores that just sold records, and you'd go in there and they'd be jamming some music, and they'd have the lights all cool and all the vinyls on the shelves. And, you would just go there and hang out. Because you got to look at all the different album covers and stuff like that. That's the sort of the era that I started playing drums in. And I think I was just, if I can't really remember how I got into, I'm sure it was probably through my older brothers. I think they used to listen to albums, and they'd be like, listen to this cool drum part, or listen to this, and they kind of like drums in songs. And so I started listening to drums in songs, and then I just thought that was the coolest instrument of the times that I saw bands on stage, which, like I said, this was back before the days of MTV, and you could just see music instantly on YouTube and things like that. I always thought the drummer was the coolest person in the band, even though they were,
and he is.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So then, that's kind of how I got into it. And then my mom, she was a singer basically, and she graduated with a music degree and was very musical. And so she encouraged, I first started off taking violin lessons in grade school. And I wasn't great at the violin, and I really wanted to play the drums. And, I think my parents were a little bit hesitant because, they didn't want me getting into the rock and roll lifestyle, and the drums were just a different type of, it probably wasn't as, sort of a refined instrument as like the violin or something a little more classical.
Right.
But I kept pushing them, and then finally, so they rented me a snare drum, and I took snare drum lessons, and I was in the band at school playing the snare drum. So it was like, I'm sure many drummers went through lessons where you learn the rudiments and you learn all the marching snare exercises and things like that. But then the thing was, I was, a restless kid. The snare drum was cool and everything, and we were renting the snare drum, and it's just like, I'd see all these kits on TV, and I was just like, this snare drum is lame, man. I want to be on the freaking kit, man. I want to be rocking out. I just, that was kind of the big attraction to me. And so then I start hammering my parents constantly about, this is so lame. I'm just playing the snare drum. I want to have a drum kit, Of course, I can't afford one. I'm 10 or 11 years old, and so I just started
right.
And I'm like, I need a drum kit, and they did get me one. And this was like this was an orange sparkle I think it was an Apollo brand, a no-name brand kit. It was from a garage sale or something. I mean, it was like, it had 2 toms, and a floor tom, and a couple of cymbals and a hi-hat. And then it had like 2 bongo drums that were also mounted on a stand that made it look like they were actually toms. So it almost looked like one of those, bigger, kits with the concert toms. And so I finally got my drum kit, and I was rocking out, and I'm putting on like my Kiss albums and playing along and stuff like that. And that's how I kind of got into drumming on the drum set. And then the other big moments in my sort of early journey were I entered a talent show when I was in 6th grade, and I did a drum solo for the talent show, and
Nice.
that was kind of like, all these kids thought that was, I mean, this was like, they were like first graders and little kids. And, I had this drum solo worked out. It was kind of based on this long drum solo that's on this Kiss Alive album, this Peter Criss drum solo in that song, 100,000 Years. And it's a solo that goes on for like 13 minutes or something. And he's doing all this stuff. And then, Paul Stanley's like rapping to the crowd and on top of the drums and things like that. And so I had this little solo that I thought was really cool, worked out, based on the Peter Criss drum solo, sort of, but had some extra licks that I kind of worked out and all this stuff. And
I love that.
I'm sure it was a quite lame drum solo, probably looking back on it now, but
But you were a rock star in that moment.
Yeah, it was like my little rock star moment in grade school, because I was like, I started off slow, and and then I kind of started ramping up, and then by the end I did this thing where I was doing this same pattern. I had just started it slow, and then I was ramping it up, and then pretty soon I was playing the thing at like warp speed, and that was the big finish, and then I did some cymbal crashes, and then I just remember the kids, like the little first graders and stuff, were like going, ah! They're holding their ears, and it was all this kind of thing, and it was a real, it was just a kind of a real trip, and it was, like I said, a sort of that rock star moment. So and then it was like, the 2 things meshed in my mind, the cool drumming, and then oh, you can get attention doing this too, and so that kind of really ignited my passion for it and stuff like that. So that's sort of how I got into it. And then I was in some bands in I hope my answer isn't going on too long.
Oh, no, you're good. I love it. I love the story behind it. I love it.
And then I did, got into some bands in high school, and I also entered the high school talent show with another drum solo that I thought was a little bit more advanced and stuff like that. And so, and then I was in a band. Sort of, I never got to the point where like you and I'm always so envious of guys like your channel, and others who are basically you're doing professional studio quality drumming. I never got to that level where I was actually miking my drums and getting that awesome sound that you get, and mixing it and all that kind of stuff. I was always just in more or less garage bands. I mean, in high school, I went to a private all boys high school, and so there were some clubs, but it was kind of the thing where if you wanted to be in a club, you could like make your own club. So me and these other guys formed what we called the Jazz Spirit Band. And it was basically me on drums. There was a guitarist, keyboards, and a saxophone, and, like a bass guitar. And
love it.
And we would set up and play at like some of the basketball games and stuff at the school and things like that. And so that kind of was a fun experience again, because it kind of, everyone knew me, as Conway, Conway the drummer. I'd be like, I showed up late once for a basketball game, and I was like loading my drums in, and everybody kind of started chanting Conway. It was kind of
there is something that happens when you're applauded for the right reasons, like not because you dropped your tray in the lunchroom and people are like, but like, real genuine applause, and you're like, oh, something I'm doing is connecting with people. It's almost
it was totally that kind of connection that kind of really ignited things, like I said, and that is a very unique feeling, because I mean, I'm not really that extroverted of a person, but and no one really knew of me in school and stuff like that, and well, in grade school, I was kind of the class clown because I was a troublemaker. But then we moved to a different part of town, and then I went to a high school, and it was all new, and I was just kind of like under the radar type of dude. Yes. And then once everybody knew that I could play the drums, it was like it was that feeling that you're talking about. I was like, oh man, people actually kind of connect with this, and it feels good to entertain people and have them applaud and all that. So
yeah, absolutely. You said you went to a private boys' school. I went to a private Christian school where drums were the devil. So like so we get to do a lot of playing with the drum set. They let us in once. They let me and some guys in one time, and they said, they're not going to do any rock and roll here today, everybody. And so it was funny. Yeah, it was one of my earlier moments of playing out, and the song was in 3 and I was playing in 4. It was a train wreck. But,
That's awesome. That's awesome.
But
go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, so it's cool that you got to play your drum set and knew what you were doing, which I did not.
Yeah.
And,
well, I didn't say I knew what I was doing. Now, don't get ahead of me. Don't get ahead of me here.
No, I didn't say that. Don't put words in my mouth.
Okay. Yeah, no, I went. It was a Jesuit. My school was a Jesuit school, so it was like they're kind of the more liberal version, I guess, of like the thing. So but my mom now, she was a little bit more of a traditional like Christian, and that's I think was the hesitation with getting me involved in drums. Was I think she kind of had a little bit of that where it was like, and this was in the 80s when they were they started censoring albums and stuff, and there was that whole push to like put parental guidance labels and stickers on albums and things like that, and she was real aware of all of the sort of the dark side and the pitfalls of the music industry. And so I think she was just worried about me getting, diving headfirst into that kind of stuff. And I like the band Kiss. In the 70s, it was like they were kind of extreme and on the edge a little bit. And I'm sure she was probably a little worried about me being into that.
So speaking of Kiss, I mean, you mentioned Peter Criss and that solo from their live album being something that you kind of patterned your solo after. What other drummers influenced you in your formative years of learning to play?
Yeah, well, it was totally a 70s thing. So I mean, John Bonham was big, you know what I mean? At the time, it was like, he was like just big because drummers at that time weren't really ever considered like the lead member of a group necessarily. I mean, when he started, it was like everybody knew who John Bonham was. When you talk about Led Zeppelin, he was like a name drummer that you knew just because his drums were so big. And that was kind of, I mean, you had like Black Sabbath and those drums were big, but I mean, I think Bonham just had that groove, and just they made sure that when they recorded that stuff that he was like, his drums were just so in the front and, a big part of it. So he was for sure a big influence. I mean, I listened to like a lot of that classic rock from the 70s. So it was all like, Foghat and Aerosmith and all of those groups. And then my second oldest brother got into Rush when they were first getting their start. And then I heard those drums, and that was like, I didn't necessarily, I mean, the music was pretty cool, but what I think what the cool thing about Rush was, drummers just knew that this guy was on another level with the drumming that he brought to rock, and it was rock music, right? That had all these like, it had some of the rudiments and things in there. It was just like, I'm sure there were like jazz fusion guys and stuff like that in the 70s that were bringing those type of licks and stuff to music, but I mean, he seemed like the first one that was bringing all this cool technical prog style drumming to the rock format, and you know what I mean, and so you hear the songs on the radio, and then you hear that incredible drumming, and so he was a big influence just for his technical precision and just the type of drumming that he did. And so those albums were like Bibles, you know, for like drummers
Right.
young drummers like me back in the day. You know, you carry around that. You knew all those albums by heart. You know, the whole 2112, that whole side of the album, man. It's like you learn how to play that on the drums, man. That is like the gold standard for like rock drumming. And so it was definitely Neil Peart, and then of course Van Halen. I mean, I don't think I need to mention them, but you know, that was another. The thing about Van Halen was, and again, I go back to, this was before the days of, you know, in the 70s anyway, before the days of MTV, before the days of the internet and stuff. And so your exposure to some of these groups was so limited. And so whenever you got a chance to see, you know, I would remember hanging out. My mom would like take us when we were kids to like Target here in town, you know, to go shopping for whatever. And they had the big magazine rack, and you know, I'd love just hanging out. They also had an album section in Target back in the day, you know. So I'd go look at the records, you know, and then I'd hang out in the magazine section. I'd look at like Circus Magazine and all these magazines that had like pictures of the bands, you know. And it was like, this was like my chance to like see what these bands look like on stage, because it was kind of like, you know, it's kind of like urban legend stuff, because you just had to go by people that actually saw them live, or they weren't ever really televised much. So Alex, you know, his kits were just outrageous back in the 70s. I mean, he had like 4 kick drums. I mean, it was obviously, he wasn't using all this stuff, but it was just for the look, which I thought was a pretty cool concept. You know, he'd have 4 like kick drums, and his kick drums were like a mile long. And, you know, I mean, so it's like he had this, it looked like, I mean, it's like, he had like these accordion type baffles on him. So it was like a kick drum here, and then it'd like come out angled like that. So he had 2 kick drums that were like angled out. And he'd have like fire extinguishers mounted to the kick drums. And, you know, he'd have chains and shock absorbers like attached and stuff. Just all this outrageous stuff that was over the top, but it really was, it was about the presentation and stuff. And it's so funny to me, because this was back before MTV and all that, you know, and here they were just making sure that this was just like just a totally cool looking visual presentation. And so that definitely had a big impact on me as well. And then, you know, and then my story is I got married when I was in my 20s, you know, when I was 26 when I got married. And then we had kids right away. So, you know, by age 27, you know, I was like, at age 25, I was, you know, in a band playing the drums and stuff. And we had a little like a rehearsal space that were borrowing from this dude. And, you know, and then, you know, by age 7, it's like, I wasn't playing the drums at all. I was married, you know, I sold my like sports car, and I had a minivan, and I started a family, you know, all that stuff, which I love, you know, I'm not ever gonna knock it, you know, it kind of took over my life. And so the drums just really went back on a shelf for the next, I mean, I didn't start drumming again until, you know, my 40s, you know. And so when are we on still?
Sorry, we're still on. Yeah. It was just telling me I have 10 minutes of my unpaid time left. So we don't have to finish in that time, but we'll.
Yeah, I will hurry. So then anyway, and then I picked it back up, and that's when I got into the electronic drum kit, just because, you know, the volume thing and just the convenience of it and stuff like that. And then it gave me a chance to kind of have this nice drumming renaissance, because the kids are older now, you know, they're kind of out of the house, and I can go back and, you know, get out all my old man albums and stuff, figure out how to play all these cool songs that I never could quite, you know, have the time to figure out back in the day. So that's kind of,
I love it.
Why yeah.
Good. Now, is that what led to you starting your YouTube channel as well?
Yeah, it is sort of. I started my channel. I was pretty unwise to the ways of YouTube and everything, and I probably shouldn't have started when I did without really researching how to start a YouTube channel first. But I was learning how to play that "Hot for Teacher" song on the drums, and, you know, I spent like a year. I'm like, you know, I want to put up one cover of just playing this, you know, because there's a lot of rumors about how he played that track, and, you know, if it's one drum track or if it's 2 tracks that are overdubbed on top of each other. So I just kind of set about trying to figure out, how can I play this, and I want to put up a video of me playing that song. So that's how I started my channel. Put the video up, started a channel with it, and then I think I didn't put up another video for like 7 months or something. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, you know, you have to like keep doing content, and you have to
right. Oh, you guys want more? Okay.
yeah, it was one of those things. And so I, you know, and then I started connecting with the whole drum community and things like that. And I thought, well, this is actually really cool. And so that's when I kind of started realizing that I should probably think about different content and how to give this stuff a different look and all that kind of stuff. And it got me into the sound and sort of music production, sound engineering side of it, and which I'm not good at by any means, but so it kind of opened up all those things. And so that's sort of how my channel started and why my channel doesn't have any direction or any consistent level of content.
I love it, but it's going really well though. I've seen your
fine,
channel grow consistently. Yeah.
And I think that I would say if people are thinking about starting a channel, you can. I think the cool thing about YouTube is, and again, it's just like, this was something that I didn't have when I was learning the drums. I had my dad was like a stockbroker businessman, and he had a tape recorder that was used for like taking memos, voice messages. Basically, it was an old cassette recorder, tape recorder. I used to use that to record my drums. It had a little condenser mic on it, you know what I mean? And I mean, the sound quality had to be just hideous, but I mean, it was cool to record my drums that way. It's like much less if, you can buy GoPro cameras, or even phones have cameras now, and it's just like, it's so different, and it's just so fun and cool. And that's what I love about the drumming community is, put up whatever skill level you're at, or whatever you like to do, put it out there. People will engage with it and enjoy watching it. So I guess sometimes you can get caught up in views and subscriptions and things like that, but it's like, I'm not overly concerned with any of that stuff. I mean, it's nice to see the channel grow, and it's nice to see people, but really it's the thing I like most about it is just getting comments and commenting on other people's channels, and then going and watching their stuff, and connecting with people that are drummers. There's no way you could do that back in the 70s. So it's really cool.
Yeah, one of our favorite things about doing this too, Mike, is the community. Like, it's just been such a neat thing to get plugged into and to be involved with.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, it's so supportive, and it's just so fun. I mean, I've been getting I've been getting talked to by my wife lately, because I'll be sitting in the chair and she's on the couch, and we'll be watching something on TV, and then I'll get my laptop out, you know what I mean, and I'll open it up and I'll put on my my earphone. And she's like, then she'll say something commenting on what's on the TV, and it's usually some program that I'm kind of half in and half out. And I'm like, hold on, what? And then she's like, well, we got to stop that. You're going to have to like find your own time, to like look at the videos and do your thing, because, this isn't going to work. I'm like,
and that's funny, because I think that it's especially as married guys, like, spending the time with that and connecting with those people is a great thing, but it can be like, oh, I'm putting more time into this. This 3 hours right here or whatever. This is my quality time. With my spouse.
I know. It's just like, I know. And then she's like, I love what you do. I've been glad you're doing all that stuff, but I mean, so it's like, and she's totally right. I'm like, I know. All right, I'll keep my laptop in the other room. We'll watch some TV, and I'll actually talk to you.
Because I do like to talk to you. You're
I do like talking to you, believe it or not. I'm sorry, but but no, and it's just the community. It's fun to, in my mind, it's always fun to just. And like you've always said, and you had a great video about how to put a channel up, and it's like, well, geez, if I would have watched that before I started my channel, it probably would have helped a lot, but I mean, it was great advice. It's like, be thinking, a week or two ahead, have some videos that you can, kind of put out on and those things all, I'm sure, help the sort of YouTube algorithm. And I really don't understand how any of that stuff works, and it's like, I just kind of recently started doing, well, maybe I should do more like a drum cover every week if I can. And I'm not good enough to where I can, but I mean, I've been trying to kind of pick up the pace a little bit, because I think that there is that sort of YouTube YouTube algorithm that pushes your videos if certain things. I don't know how it works, but it's just it's mysterious stuff to me. But I mean, so if you want to, advice would be, if you want to get into YouTube and you want to get views and things like that, I would say watch the video that you did, because that's great how to do a channel the right way.
I need to do an update. I need to do like an updated one, or maybe it wasn't that long ago and it's all running together. But it can be time consuming.
Yeah.
And I think that there's some guys and gals that have more time. So they're like putting out a larger amount of content. Yeah. And then on my end, it's like, it's hard to keep up with, 7 videos a week. But so I'll like usually catch the most 2 recent ones if somebody's putting out prolific amounts of content.
Yeah.
But like once a week, I mean, in terms of drum covers, like that's about all that I can, manage.
It is very time consuming. And I would imagine even more so with your acoustic drums, and just getting that, sound mixes and stuff like that. Your stuff is just it's just great quality. And then, that the editing and it's great that you have Loretta helping with the the mobile cam and all that. And it's like, I'm down trying to do my things, and it's like I'm thinking about maybe one of those sliders and things like that for a camera. But it's just like it's a subtle. Seems like a subtle effect, for something that is kind of expensive, and we'll get into that.
Right.
I'm a drummer on a budget, so
understand. Marcus Drums bought one of those mobile sliders, and he named it Loretta.
That's awesome. Oh man, that's great.
He's like, I mean that as a compliment. I'm like, oh no, we took it as a compliment. That's awesome.
It is. She's great. I mean, you tell Loretta, man, she's one of the better DPs I've seen. I mean, I love this stuff. I know it's kind of a weird effect, but sometimes she'll do the thing where the whole thing goes upside down, and then I'm like, this is cool.
I love when I get to see her footage for the first time, when I'm putting everything together. I'm like, hey, this is really good. She's like, you have to yell. I'm like,
I'm sure it's a treat to load that footage in and start editing it, I'm sure.
Well, and it's a challenge because the space looks bigger in the camera than it is. So, it challenges her in terms of like, how can I'm shooting the same thing. So how can I shoot it differently and find new places to come in?
Oh man, she's great, man. I don't know how you're able to concentrate on the drum track, man. I'm like, she's like, in between the hi-hat and the snare and all. It's not like that, man. I'd be like, look out, man.
I've hit a cymbal really hard while she's been close by, and you can see the camera goes up. But let's talk. I want to talk about your kit, since you had mentioned the acoustics and doing all that. I know you're playing an electric kit, but your electric kit is one of the most unique electric kits that I've seen, and it almost is reminiscent, in my limited knowledge, of something that Alex Van Halen would have played. Like, tell me about your kit.
That was the inspiration, was those Alex kits that I was talking about, where he would have like those octobans, those little 6-inch octobans that are, 6 inches around, but they're like, 55 inches long or something. But he'd have them mounted in these cool places. And so his whole drum kit would sort of look like a spaceship or something cool, some industrial looking thing. And that was kind of the inspiration for what I did with my kit. And I brought, like, it's an electronic kit. I'm always jealous of you guys that play the acoustic drums. I mean, I was, obviously grew up playing acoustic drums, and it's just, being a suburbanite like I am, it's like, I don't have the means to like build a soundproof room and then get a nice, like killer acoustic kit and then get all the microphones, and it's just, it's so cool to do that. And I'm always jealous. I'm like, God, I really wish I could play like a big giant acoustic kit and do my drum covers that way, but it's like I just can't, for all the all the logistical reasons I just mentioned. So
and you want your neighbors to like you.
Yeah, I want my neighbors to think I'm a really nice guy and all that. Yeah. So that's why when I got back into drumming, I found out about the electronic drums, and so the kit I got was this Yamaha kit that has these these goofy little rubber pads essentially. You know, they look
Yeah.
like this, and you know, they mount to the, you know, they mount to a little rack, and you know, and it's just like, and I started, you know, on my channel, it's like my earlier videos, you know, I'm playing this kit, you know, that it's just the stock kit that I have. And I, you know, I always had, once again, it's like, I'm like this 11-year-old kid still dreaming about playing some cool monster kit, you know, and all that. I'm like, maybe I can do something to the, you know, these goofy little tiny rubber pads, you know, to make them. I don't have any money for all that other stuff, so maybe I can get creative, you know, like Alex Van Halen used to do, and just add stuff to this kit that make it look like, you know, something cooler than it really looks like now. So I did. That's where I came up with the idea. I looked at his Octobans. I'm like, you know, I wonder if you know, if I could buy like some just tubing, you know, like PVC pipe or something, and just, you know, and then buy a you know, a drum hoop, you know, like an acoustic 8-inch drum hoop, you know, rim that would go around and then connect to the tubing and make this thing look like it's an Octoban type of drum.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know. I'm not, you know, I'm not much, unlike you, who actually make like drums from scratch.
Oh, well, not quite from scratch, but
I mean, I don't have a wood shop and all, you know, all this equipment and stuff. So I'm like, well, I sort of embarked on this project with knowing that you know, I'm gonna have to kind of figure out if I can actually do this. So I ordered the drum hoops first to see how big they are, if they'll actually fit. And they did fit perfectly around the edge of this rubber pad. I'm like, wow. And the holes are there. I'm like, okay, well, man, you know, now if I can get a shell, maybe I can like just sandwich the thing together with the lugs and make what looks like a, you know, more acoustic looking drum. And so I did. I ordered some, I went on the internet and found the actual measurement of the outside diameter of like PVC pipe, 8-inch PVC pipe. And sure enough, the outside diameter comes right to the edge of the electronic rubber pad. I'm like, wow, you know, so, you know, that stuff got a little expensive, but I ordered like a 10-foot length of it. And then got it to my house, you know, and then I got out in the garage. I do have a table, so I had to figure out how to cut it into the different lengths and stuff. And then I cut it down and you know, added some like chrome automotive wrap. You know, they have this vinyl wrap, people wrap cars and stuff with. And so I added so it's basically just it's the same rubber pad with this PVC pipe mounted to it, you know, and this took forever because I had to drill the holes in the right spot and everything like that. And then the big kicker was I get the shells all cut, you know, and ready to go and mounted on there. And then when I went to put I'll try and hold this so you can see, but I went to put the lugs in, and I realized that the shell is actually a little bit thinner than where these holes were going through the hoop. Okay. I'm like, it was lining up, the screw was lining up to inside of the hole in the lug. So I had to last thing I had to do was find these little brackets so that, you know, that actually these lugs don't go through the holes of the hoop. I had to create a new hole that's a little bit outside of the
gotcha.
Hole. Anyway, it's kind of a technical thing, but I thought, I mean, my heart dropped, you know, because I could say I spent 3 days cutting all this stuff and sanding it, and then I go to here it is. I'm gonna put this thing together and it's gonna be great. And I go to put the screw through and it's like, oh no, it doesn't go in the hole. Oh man, the whole project is I spent all this money and stuff and did all this work. Oh man, I was bummed out. I'm like, well, and then then it became how can I make this work? There's got to be a way. So that's kind of how I actually had to modify the actual hardware.
I love that because it's kind of like a problem solving thing, you know, and you're like, okay, I've got all this stuff. How do I work with what I've got and make it happen? So this isn't all a waste of money and time.
Yeah, it was a real roll of the dice because it's like I kind of had to, you know, pretty much commit to, you know, just ordering this PVC pipe because I couldn't find any anywhere. And I'm like, I had to go on the internet and order some in that size, you know. And so then it's like, oh, now I guess I'm committed to this. I sure hope it works. You know,
was your wife like, there's like a 20-foot long package outside
delivered to my front porch in the house? I'm like, sorry, you know, and it was all dirty and dusty and stuff, you know. It came from some warehouse. I'm like, sorry, honey. Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Just trust me. When this is done, it's going to be awesome.
But I thought you'd appreciate the story because, you know, as we all know, you are actually making drums. And the thing that occurred to me was, I'm like, this is all electronic stuff. So it's like the acoustics make no difference at all. I don't need to have a maple shell. I don't need to have a, oak or anything like that. I can use whatever materials, is kind of most economical for my limited budget and make the things kind of look different. And so, and then, these things are heavier than I thought they were going to be, they're actually pretty, that PVC is kind of thick and it's actually pretty, man, now watch I mount these things to the rack, that little rack, and the whole thing's going to tip over or something. That was the other worry. And then, but I connected them up. I'm like, it actually is pretty solid. So
nice. You didn't put sandbags on the bottom of the rack.
I'm like, that's what I was envisioning. I'm like, I'm going to have to figure out how to anchor this thing so it doesn't just fall over when I put these drums on.
I love it. Well, and whatever brain you're using, you're getting, and then maybe this is just kind of the evolution of where electronic sound processing is at, but like if I closed my eyes and listened to your cover, I wouldn't go, hey, that dude's playing an electric kit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's the whole sound engineering side of it, which is, a whole nother skill set that I think if you start a drum cover channel, it's like pretty soon you end up becoming your own audio engineer and producer basically. And and so first, if you go back to my early videos, the sound really isn't the same as like my later ones. That was an evolution as well. They have that Superior Drummer, which is a piece of software for triggering, that instead of electronic drums usually use what's called a little drum module, and that's what creates the sounds. Well, you can actually use that drum module to make triggers basically. So it's little nice triggers that go to like this Superior Drummer, and Superior Drummer is really, that's a vast piece of software, because it has all these drums that were recorded in these studios over in Europe, and they have different types of reverb and compression, and it has all that stuff. And it's just like, I'm shooting in the dark with this because I don't know anything about how to mix any of this stuff, and I listen to your guys' videos and I'm like, man, how am I going to get that sound, And so it's just a continuous tweaking it's trial and error with me in that program, because it's like, it's a full on studio quality production program. And I don't know anything about studio quality production of sound. And so it's like, I have to hit a button or turn a knob, see how that sounds. Okay, how's that different? Turn it back, listen to it again. Yeah. All right, reapply it, listen to it. Okay, I can maybe see what that's doing to the sound. That's how inexperienced I am in that area. So I really appreciate you saying that. Yeah. Yeah, it sounds. I'm like scratching the surface. One of my friends, we're working on a project for this month, and he said, this is just so you're not the only one that's learning as you go. Yeah. He's like, I love your drum sounds on your channel. And I was like, when I got your file, I'm like, he's just using stock EQs and verbs. He's like, and I'm like, yeah, man, can I make my own? I don't know. It's amazing. Your stuff sounds amazing, though. I don't know if you did you go online and look at like tutorials on stuff on how to mix sound, or some of you guys, I'm like, you're like, you sound like sounds like studio quality songs with the drums. Yeah,
I appreciate that. Like, I kind of I did some recording sessions a while, quite years ago. And so I've been around it. I'm not a sound engineer by any stretch, but I know a guy who is. And sometimes I'll be like, hey man, I got a problem. I don't know how to fix it in the studio. Yeah. Well, have you tried the flux capacitor adjustment? And I'm like,
that's great.
The flux capacitor.
Your stuff it's so good, man. It's just like, I love, and not to say that other people's, I like all the channels. There's guys that just put a room mic in and play to like music coming through speakers, and that stuff is great too. I love listening to drums, so it's like, but I'm just, it's occurring to me as I get more and more into my channel and stuff. It's like, man, you hear some of this stuff, and it's like, God, how do I get it to sound like that? So
and I still feel like that. Yeah, I'll listen to stuff and be like, I'll listen to our mix. I'm like, I'm really happy with the way this sounds, Yeah. And then I'll hear somebody else's like, man, how are they getting that
Yeah, it's
that
amazing.
particular pop out of the snare, the way they're getting it. And
Oh man,
yeah.
your snare pops like no one else's, dude. You got
Oh, thanks,
whatever
dude.
you're doing, don't change that.
Okay, we'll keep
It's
the
good,
snare
man.
just the way that it is. Awesome. I love it. Well, I wanted to tell you too, before I forget, you'd mentioned the Hot for Teacher cover. And one of the things that one of the pieces of content that you've put out that I enjoy all of it, but that I particularly was like, oh, I love that he did this, is when you broke down the intro for Hot to Teacher, because it's pretty complicated.
Yeah.
What led you to doing that? Like,
well, that's how like I said, that's how I started my channel. I just went on this quest to like figure out if that song could be played on like a drum kit and played without using overdubs and double tracking it and things like that. And so it was kind of like that was something that I worked on for, like I said, like a year. And so then I thought, later on, I thought, well, I should probably share kind of, it's always intimidating for me to do videos like that, because I'm not like a smoothie on camera like you are. But I just wanted to kind of share. It really was just, I just wanted to kind of share my sort of discovery journey on how maybe one way to play this thing. And I thought that other drummers would appreciate it. And then I really kind of wanted it to be a place where people can come on and say, oh, this is actually how I play this part. Or if people, are playing it and think there's something that I'm doing that's incorrect, because I don't know. I'm just kind of going off this piece of music that I found that I thought was a pretty good drum tab of how that thing goes. And then so I kind of wanted to just share with everybody, if you're trying to learn this thing, here's some of the things that I had to discover over a long period of time. I just want to put them in one video where you can kind of watch this, and hopefully if you follow this and you really want to play it, I wanted to just show exactly how you play this thing, slow it down, and this will get you pretty darn close, was kind of the idea behind it. Yeah.
Well, I love that because a lot of times it's not in the community necessarily, but like you'll see drummers play stuff and they're like, you just leave that for you to figure out. Like, I'm not going to teach you my secrets. And so when somebody breaks down some of those iconic, pieces, it makes it accessible to like a beginner or an intermediate going, oh, well, I might not be able to have it at tempo yet, but I understand what Mike is saying and I can do this thing or that thing.
Yeah. And I'm not, as far as teaching goes, you're a teacher. So, that stuff is more natural to you. That was my only hesitation in doing it, was just, I talking to a camera is always kind of weird for me and stuff. So I kind of was a little hesitant about it. So I'm glad you like it, because I honestly, it's my attempt to kind of share what I know about it, and hopefully that helps other people who may be trying to learn it.
Yeah, and I love that too. Like, hey, this helped me. Breaking it down like this, maybe it'll help somebody else. I think that's a great attitude.
Yeah.
Let's jump off of drums for just a second. Sure. Also, you might appreciate this. I don't know. I just saw it. I thought I'd share it with you. A friend of mine sent this to me. It's a little Christmas ornament, but it's a striper bass drum.
That is awesome. Striper.
kind of that same era, that 80s era of metal, kind of in a sub-genre that I got into later. Like all of the music I love now, I'm like, how was I not into Weezer in the 90s? How did I, I don't know. But when you're not playing the drums, or putting headphones on when you're supposed to be hanging out with your wife. No, I'm just kidding. What do you like? What are the other things you like to do or enjoy doing?
Well, I work as a graphic designer, so I like to either look at designs and kind of play around on the computer in like either Photoshop or any of those design type programs. So I'm kind of into that, and I just enjoy listening to music. I don't really, my main hobby is just playing the drums, so other than that, I hang out and go out with friends and all that kind of stuff. But really, like I said, I'm an old dude, so it's like I'm sitting around like watching drum videos and
I get it. You said it twice. You're like, I'm an old dude, and I'm like, so, and you don't have to tell me, but I'm like, he doesn't, like, he makes it sound like he's way older than he appears to be. So like, I'm 40,
no.
I'm
You're cutting out
48.
on me.
I'm 48, and so like, I'm like, this dude doesn't look any older than I do. Like, I mean, younger even.
Well,
but
you don't
like,
look 48. Now, let me first start by saying that.
well, good. Man. We've got good genes then, man. If nobody can really pinpoint,
I'm 55, so I've got good genes, bro. I'm way up there. Yeah,
way up there. That's not way up there. Now, when I was 18, at 18, I would have been like 55. That is way up there.
Yeah.
But at 48, I'm like, that's not old.
Well, you don't look 48, so good for you.
Well, likewise, bless you. You're my new best friend.
Good times.
I love it. Well, we'll wrap it up with giving you a chance to let me ask it as a question. I guess that's a more recognized format. What advice would you give to somebody starting out on the drums and or starting their own YouTube channel?
Well, my advice would be just go ahead and do it. If you're thinking about doing it, it's so amazing to me that there is. I mean, it doesn't cost you anything. So that's just amazing to me. I mean, like I said, back in the 70s when I was listening to music, it's like that stuff. I had no way to record anything. I couldn't really film myself. I mean, I guess I could get buy like a 8mm camera or something, you know what I mean? It's just like, video cameras really weren't around at that point in the 70s yet. The old-fashioned VHS video cameras weren't even around. Right. So it's like, I would say if you are even a beginning drummer or whatever, and you like to do it and you want to start a channel, just start a channel, man. Why not? It's not going to cost you anything, and it's fun to put stuff up there and see it on the internet. I think that's cool stuff. And then my other advice would be, once you start your channel, have a little bit of a plan. I didn't have a plan, but if you want to grow your channel and turn it into, your like pet project and make it bigger and better and all those things, look around, learn from what other people have out there. That's kind of my evolution of my videos. I started off just kind of with one camera filming things, and whatever came out, was what I put out there. But I mean, there's enough like free editing software out there. I mean, it's like this DaVinci editing software that I use is absolutely free. It's an entire like professional software program for editing videos that, I mean, it's a big piece of software, but it's free. It's not even a trial version. You can just get a version of it for free. And I mean, it might not have all the bells and whistles of some of the other editing things, but I mean, it's pretty powerful, and it's what professionals actually use to edit like movies and stuff. So, look around and see what other people are doing, and then get some ideas about how maybe you can change the lighting, in the studio, or, set up your space. I mean, I started off, just like I said, it was my drums in the basement room. And then I got that idea about the, about sort of the black curtains around my kit. I actually, used to work on TV commercials, as part of like my career as like an art director, advertising art director. And, commercials are actually, you work with a director for commercials. If there's a big enough budget, shooting a commercial, they actually have, directors that you hire and work with, and will shoot this stuff. And so it's like a little TV shoot, honestly. And this one director that we were working with said, all that 80s Nike work for like Michael Jordan, where they would show him, in real like super slow motion doing a dunk, with the basketball. He said that technique is called the black box technique, where you actually you create a black studio, all the walls, the ceiling, the floor, everything is black. And then you just light the subject, and it really is a dramatic look. And that was kind of the inspiration for how I started making my like drum space. I found some black, they're actually black moving pads, moving blankets, for like when you're moving the furniture. But I looked up on the internet, I was like, I need to get like a black curtain, like a stage curtain or something. And they were like $350 or something. Like, yeah, no, I don't. No, I'm not talking about that. And then I saw these black moving pads. Like, now we're in my ballpark, they're like
Right.
$10 for 4 or something. I'm like, there we
Yeah, I
go.
know they're very well priced. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the other cool thing I'd say if you're starting out, you can innovate and find out ways to like make your videos look interesting and cool, relatively on a small budget, and I think that's amazing. That you can make those things, have those things at your disposal. Nowadays, it's a lot of fun. And as far as learning the drums go, I mean, there is so many great instructional videos. Drumeo is one that I always look at, and then just looking at all the other drummers that are out there on YouTube. Learn, absorb like a sponge. Learn that stuff, and then film yourself, practicing and stuff like that. Because I never realized how goofy I looked playing the drums
No.
until I started, filming myself. I'm like, I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
man,
We all do that. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's like I got my drummer face going. It's like, yeah. So I would say record yourself, film yourself, look at it, critique yourself, and then put it out there and have fun. People will like it. The drum community is very supportive, and it's a whole lot of fun to connect with people all over. So don't be bashful or think that it's it is. I know it's scary to put something out there that you've done, that you're opening yourself up obviously for
right,
whatever, but I haven't seen anything like that, you know what I mean? And if that does happen, it's like everybody will just kind of get together and say, this isn't cool, and you know what I mean? It's there's so many supporters out there, you'll be amazed. So
yeah,
go for it, man. If you're thinking about doing it, do it.
Love it. I love it. and like what you were saying too, if you're seeing something like that Mike's doing, or that we're doing, or that another channel's doing that you like, most everybody that I've interacted with is happy to say, to field a question. How are you getting this look, or how are you getting this sound?
Absolutely, yeah. So people want to, you can talk directly to somebody and just say, hey man, your stuff sounds great. What how are you doing that? And you're right. Everybody would be like, yeah, here's exactly, here's what you got to do. It's just a great way to kind of get all the tips and, all the experiences out there, and everybody will be happy to connect and share information. It's great.
Yeah. And I love that too. It's not like, nope, that's how we do it here, we're not going to let anybody else know how we do it. We love everybody that I've met. We all love to share that information and help everybody grow and get better. Yeah. So you guys, if you haven't already, go right now and check out Mike Conway's channel. There'll be a link in the description below. And I'll float it up here.
Yeah, up here.
Somewhere up in this neighborhood. I always get turned around.
I know.
But Mike is we've communicated offline. This is our first conversation, but he's every bit as cool in person as he is in his interactions online and his videos. Phenomenal player. He undersells himself, but he is phenomenal. So go check him out. Mike, thank you, my friend, for hanging out with me today. I appreciate it.
Hey, Eric, thank you so much. I've been looking forward to this for a long time, and it's always great to connect with new people. And I love what you do, brother. It's really cool. I mean, your messages, your videos, your whole channel. I mean, it's a constant source of inspiration for me on a lot of levels. So it's really good stuff, and it's really appreciated. So you need to know that, and I'm really glad that we were able to chat a little bit and
yes.
And connect. Yeah.
And you made my day. Thank you. That's nice. It's nice to know that what you do connects with somebody. And so I appreciate that. And and I love what you're doing. You keep doing what you're doing. And I love it. I love it. You guys, thanks for stopping by. We will see you next time.
All right.